It's been a very interesting year. The time has gone by very quickly. Hard to believe that it's already been a year. But a lot has happened in the past year that we've been working very, very hard and trying to accomplish a lot of different things that we spoke about during the campaign. I feel we have accomplished quite a bit. Obviously, there's still things that we need to do, things that we have on our plate that we'd like to see accomplished. One of my biggest disappointments thus far is we have not been able to get any movement on a charter revision commission, because I think it's very, very important for stability and for continuity to look at the structure of government and look at the terms of government officials so that they can be more efficient and effective, rather than finding every other year they're starting a campaign again.
Yeah. Yeah, that is one of our questions about charter reform. So you
Right.
haven't made a lot of progress on that.
No, we have the support of the Chamber of Commerce. They are very, very interested in seeing charter revision to speak of a 4-year term for mayor and most likely common council. I also believe it's very important that we consider term limits. If you're talking a 4-year term for mayor, perhaps a 2-term limit would be in order.
Okay.
I think that's very important. I think a 4-year term for common council members with staggered terms so that they're not replaced all in 1 year. Because this way they can run with the Board of Education.
Right.
And I know that the Chamber of Commerce has addressed the Republican Town Committee, and tonight they're going to be speaking before the Democratic Town Committee to lend their support to a 4-year term for mayor or to charter revision.
I have a list of questions for Mark. He wants to know what the city is doing about the blighted buildings in the Wall Street area.
Well, obviously you've seen POCO and Head of the Harbor South. They're starting to move forward. With both of those, one of the things I said during the campaign was we need to bring the developers to the table, find out why they're stuck in neutral, why things aren't happening, what they need and what we can do to help facilitate their moving forward, and we've done that. So both of them are starting to move forward. Unfortunately, there's that abyss in between that's a big problem, and we're looking at what we need to do there as well. Mainly, it's the burned out building, which is really an eyesore, and I think the blight enforcement officer is taking a look at that and seeing what can be done there, but we need to move that forward. I know my economic development director has been meeting with the owner of the building, trying to get some movement, trying to find out what the holdup is, if the insurance money is being held up, and how we can facilitate moving that forward. It's not an easy thing when you're dealing with privately owned property. So there's different procedures that you have to follow, and while it's great to say, okay, let's wave a magic wand and make the person do this or do that, you really can't. There's a procedure you have to follow, and if the procedures that you put in place are implemented, then generally they have to go through the court system, and it's a time-consuming type of thing that has to be done, but it takes time.
Okay. Well, can you tell me anything about what the holdup might be with that building?
Well, I understand that there's a problem with the insurance company releasing the money or the bank releasing the money for repairs. Now, that's where we're trying to work with the owner of the building to try to find out how we can move that forward. Maybe we can meet with the bank, meet with the insurance company, get the people at the table talking and saying, okay, what needs to happen here and how can we make that happen?
When will we learn exactly why the mosque suit was a lost cause?
That I'm not sure.
Okay.
There's, as I mentioned before, there were lots and lots of information that created in us a concern that the city of Norwalk was in a very delicate and very vulnerable position. That whole situation was probably, and hopefully, the biggest challenge of my first year, and hopefully won't see a challenge of that magnitude at any time soon, because it took a lot of meetings, a lot of discussion, a lot of negotiations, a lot of sleepless nights for all of us to come up with a resolution that we felt was fair and took into consideration everybody's concerns. There was the neighborhood issue with traffic, vehicles and the dangerous curves on the intersection coming down Fellow Street towards where the mosque was from the Kendall School area. Coming the other direction, there's sightline issues and where the driveways were going to be, plus the parking on the site. And it made, the neighbors, rightfully so, were upset and wanted to see if there could be another location. Mm-hmm. The zoning regulations allowed for what was presented there. The zoning department had worked with the developers of the Al Madani Islamic Center. So everything was in place, but it was a concern to the neighbors, and we addressed that concern. And this was something that, like I said, took a lot of meetings, a lot of give and take. I think everybody worked very diligently and very hard. And we came up with a resolution and a solution that we feel was good. Not only was it good for the neighborhood because now they maintain that integrity of the traffic flow and all that rather than increasing the traffic, and now the city has put a cap on the liability. We thought that there was a potential for $15 to $20 million worth of liability if we decided to fight this in federal court. What we did was we capped our liability at really, dollar-wise, a little about $1.2 million, because we're going to buy the property back, so that property can be turned over, so that money is going to be recovered. And the money will be coming out of the insurance fund. So it won't have any impact on the taxpayers whatsoever at this point.
The Council Planning Committee and the Redevelopment Agency are meeting, I think, Thursday on the 95-7 proposal. Mm-hmm. What can you say about that?
Well, I think that it's about time that we get some movement on that project. What do they want to put there, and is the city prepared to allow a change in the LDA in order to have that there? Uh-huh. I know that there's been many, many meetings going forth. I know that GGP has listened to a lot of the different recommendations by people, by the stakeholders, by people who say, I'd like to see this, I'd like to see that. And I think Thursday night, you'll see a presentation that takes into consideration all those different things, and they're hopeful that the decision makers will support their proposal and allow for a change in the LDA. I know a couple of the things, a couple of the changes they've made. I'm pleased to see that they were willing to make those changes, but we'll have to see how it all unfolds in front of the RDA and in front of the Planning Commission.
Okay. Where do you stand on it?
Where I stood before, I want to see the highest and best use for that piece of property, but I also want to be reasonable. Okay. We have a couple of choices. We can try to make the project there the best it can possibly be and move forward, or we can say, you know what, we're not ready for a mall and risk having that property remain vacant for another 7, 8, 10 years. And are we going to get somebody that will purchase it subject to the LDA, as GGP did? Mm-hmm. And, they did. They purchased it subject to the LDA, and it was kind of at their own risk. They knew what they were buying, and they knew that there was a risk that there may be some pushback. So I want to see the highest and best use, something that we're not going to be sorry we put there. Mm-hmm. And so I'm waiting to see exactly what GGP is proposing Thursday night. Okay. I'm open to, although, obviously my input, my position would be well received, or I think have some influence over the decision makers. The decision makers are the people who are going, the redevelopment planning and so forth, determining whether or not they're going to allow them to move forward. I'm open to what they're going to. I'm open to hearing what they have to say, and if I feel that what they're putting there is good for Norwalk, then I'm saying let's move forward. If I feel that it's not good for Norwalk, then I would have my reservations and suggest that we not move forward.
What do you think the challenges are for the next year?
For the next year, again, I think charter revision. I think the government structure, the organization of our government. needs to be looked at, where we have a need for changes so that we can run more effectively and efficiently. I think one of the biggest challenges we're going to face, unfortunately, is the budget. If you listen to the governor with a $100 million deficit and not raising taxes, he's made it clear that aid to municipalities might have to be scaled back. And that's going to be difficult for us to handle. We have two choices. We can either raise taxes or scale back on services, or we can do a combination of both. My goal, and my goal to the finance director, is to keep any tax increase at or below 2%. I think that's an ambitious request, something I think we can do. But it's going to take the department heads, the mayor's office, the city finance director, working to try to scale that down and making that 2% increase a reality.
Okay.